Hey folks, I'm here for AA Tuts, and today I have a very sweet tutorial for you. In today's tutorial I'm going to use 3 new, very nice and very useful plugins. 2 of which belongs to Metal, which you've heard quite a lot of lately. The first one is Freeform Pro and the second one is Shapeshifter. And the third one will be Form 2 by Red Giant. So, without further ado, let's first have a quick preview. Okay, so that looks pretty cool. Let's break it down. First, we're going to build our scene, animate it, and create a camera with a very simple rig for it. Then we're going to duplicate that scene 4 times. And for each scene, we're going to animate the camera in a slightly different way. Now this tutorial is all about the displacement maps, and pretty soon you'll see why. So, first things first, let's start with the floor. In the Assets folder, under Stills, there's a picture called wood-14_D. That's a simple parquet floor in a very large scale, 6000 by 6000. We'll go ahead and create a new composition, 2000 by 2000, because we do want it big, but not extremely big. Under comps, in pre-comps, I have parquet floor base, which I've already created. I won't go step by step in every part of the way in this tutorial. However, I will go step by step in the important parts. As you can see, it's 2000 by 2000. I fitted the picture to the composition, which means it's now 33% of the original size. You can have it larger, that depends on how large or small you want the wood planks. Personally, I haven't been to a basketball game for about 73 years, so I have no idea how large or small the wood planks are. I'm just going with intuition here. Anyway, in the middle I've got the circles, which are just 5, let me increase the resolution here, 5 different circles, all in a shape layer, different colors, and the transfer mode of the layer is set to multiply. Okay, above that I've got the Metal logo. I think it's only appropriate, since most of this tutorial is about the Metal plugins. And last but not least, I've got the reflection map. You might remember from the preview, we've got this ring of lights going on, and this will be acting as the reflection, which you can see here. Now I know it's not accurate, but generally speaking, this whole preview doesn't really apply to the laws of physics, so we can take ourselves a bit of artistic freedom here. Okay? Of course, if you want, you can widen the radius to make it a bit more believable. I think it works fine, so I'll just leave it as is. Let's go inside there. These lights are just one circle in shape layer, and I've added a repeater to it, and I played with the transform until I got this nice circle. To it I've added a fast blur and a glow. In here we've got a reflection of a scoreboard. Now when I first started working on this scene, I had a scoreboard hanging in mid-air here, and I ended up not using it, but the reflection was still very nice. So I kept it, and you don't have to, but it could be still up there, you don't know, it might be beyond the camera's view, and the whole reflection map is set to add in the transfer modes. Now let's start building this scene. Let's close this comp first and create a new composition, 1280 by 720, 25 frames per second, and we'll call it main comp. Let's put it in the render comps. And let's drag inside our parquet floor base. Okay? Now let's apply to it Freeform Pro by Metal. And something doesn't look right here, and that's because I'm in custom view. Let's switch to active camera. since we don't have a camera in the composition, it still looks 2D. So let's create a new camera. Ctrl-Alt-Shift-C. We'll make a 35mm. Moving around, we can see it's a full 3D layer. Great. Let's reset the camera. Now let's go into 3D transform. Rotate it on the x-axis to -90 degrees. Lower the y position. We're gonna take it to 350 or so. And let's back off a bit so we can see what's going on. Okay. Now let's go to the grid and set the rows to 4 and the columns to 4 as well. I would like to attend to one of the most important upgrades in my eyes in this version of Freeform. That will be the grid control points. Now in the old version, you could move the grid points in space. The main difference in this version, at least for me, is that you can now dial in the exact numbers for the coordinates that you want. That is, you can control each vertex X, Y, and Z position. And more than that, you can even link objects to them, like nulls and other 3D objects, which will come in very, very handy further on down the line. Now what we would like to do is create that wavy motion that happens when the basketball hits the ground. To do that, we would like to animate this vertex and the surrounding vertices. To make the process a lot easier, we're going to parent them to a null, to a 3D null. The grid is divided to rows, 0 to 4 rows. That is, we have 5 rows. And if we'll open up row 0, we can control row 1.1, position X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. So by that logic, row 2.3 is the middle one. Let's see. Yep, I was right. Okay, great. Wonderful. This is it. Now let's create a new null object. Ctrl-Alt-Shift-Y to create a null object, and we'll call it lower center null. We'll make it a 3D object, and we want to place it exactly where the floor is. We rotated the floor to 90 degrees on the x-axis, and we set the y position to 350. So we need to add to the y position of the null another 350 pixels. So we'll hit plus 350, and there it is. If we'll go to row 3.3, position Z, which is the one we want to manipulate, alt-click on the stopwatch and pick whip it to the null's Y position. Now we have a great big hole there, and that's because the original position was 0 and now it's set to 710. So that adds to the expression minus 710, which will set it back to 0, and there you go, we have easy control over the middle part. Oh, very nice. Now we want to control the surrounding vertices, which are these 8 vertices around here. To do that, we're going to duplicate this null. We'll change its color and we'll scale it up just so we can see it better. And we'll change its name to floor surrounding. Position remains the same, only now we would like to manipulate the surrounding vertices, which will be in row 2. We have the second, this one, so I'll click on it and pick with it to the floor surrounding all Y position, and once again add minus 710 at the end of the expression. Mark the R2P2 position Z and go to edit copy expression only. Paste the expression on the R2P3 and R2P4 position Z. That will be it for the row 1, and in row 2.2 paste it, this one as well. Paste it, and row 3. So this can get a bit confusing at times, but it takes just a little bit of getting used to. This is actually the reason I've created these nulls. So now, if I'll take the middle null and pull it down, and I'll take the surrounding null and pull it up, you can see how we can manipulate the floor to give us the wanted animation. And that's it for the floor rig. If you've been to the Metal website, you might have seen this composition right here, the folding cube preset. When I first took a look at this, I was very much puzzled of how they managed to create these 3D cubes which have these beveled edges. I won't ruin the surprise for you, but I would say that it has everything to do with the option to control exactly where these points are. You can go ahead and download this preset and find out for yourself. Let's create a new layer, complete black, which will be our background, and we'll call it background, original. And now let's add a mask to our floor layer. Hit MM, feather it out, lower the mask expansion. Somewhere around here should be fine. Right. Now let's add the top lights, which will create this illumination on the floor. Create a new light, Control Alt Shift L. Since we're going to use Red Giant's Lux, we'll call it Lux, and we're going to use a point light at the intensity of 1%. And the color doesn't really matter, and we don't want to cast any shadows. Let's switch to top view and back up a bit. And we would like to set it above the emitted light on the floor. We have 15 of those lights. You need to duplicate it and move it to the position. Now, an easy way to do that would be to create a new null, Ctrl Shift Y, and make it a 3D object. Connect the light to it. Duplicate the light. I don't need the first one to be connected, just the second one, unparent it. And now let's rotate the null on the Y-axis until it reaches the correct position, and duplicate it, unparent the last one. So go ahead and finish the light setting, and we'll keep on going from there. Now let's parent all the lights to the null, switch over to the active camera once again, rename this null to Lux null, move the lights above. Let's add a new layer, we'll make it black, and we'll rename it to Lux, and we'll apply Lux to it, obviously. Under point lights, we'll use natural, and we don't want to use the light's intensity. We'll increase the intensity to about 230, because we do want the large ball of light here. Under the general section, we want to change the name starts with from anything to Lux. This is why we name these lights Lux. And the reason I'm changing this is that I'm going to use 2 more lights in the scene to illuminate the entire scene, and I don't want the Lux effect to affect them as well. Now I would like to change the color by adding a fill effect, and I will use the blue. Gives it a real nice dramatic look, and to this I would like to add a bit of glow, just the standard After Effects glow, and we'll lower the glow threshold and increase the glow radius. To get rid of all this huge blue illumination all around, or rather to concentrate it around the actual lights, we'll use curves, and we'll go to the alpha channel and lower the alpha. This might be a little bit too much on the glow, lower the glow threshold more, and this will do for now. Just to make some room here, let's hit the Shy button for the Lux lights. Next, let's add some lights to illuminate the scene. We'll create a new light, Ctrl Alt Shift L, and we'll call it Main Light. We're going to use Spot this time, and we'll set the intensity to 150. We'll set the cone angle to 180, and we'll leave the cone feather at 50%. We want it to cast shadows, and the shadow darkness should be 75, and the shadow diffusion as well, 75. Okay, and the color, we'll use a very, very light blue. So immediately the scene is a bit more illuminated. Switch over to custom view so we can see a bit better what's going on here. The camera is right here, and it's looking more or less at the metal logo. So we want the main light to be just about the same position. Let's go to top view. Let's move the light to the back and a bit to the right. Go to the left view. Let's bring it down a bit, somewhere around the camera's position. And we want the point of interest to be somewhere around the middle. Let's switch back to active camera, see how that looks. We actually missed it a bit. Let's go to top view and pull the point of interest to the middle. So this is a bit more like it. Now we need a bit more light in the scene. So we'll add a fill light. Ctrl Alt Shift L to create a new light. We'll call it fill light. We'll change the light type to ambient, and we'll set the intensity to about 75. We'll leave the color as is, and we'll get a little bit more illumination in the scene. Move the Lux lights a bit more to the top. What's cool about having these lights connected to a null is that even though it's accurate as far as the illumination on the floor goes, it doesn't look that good. So to set them further apart, I can just hit S on the Lux null and increase the scale, which would set them a bit further apart from one another, giving a bit more space, and I think it looks a bit better. We need two more elements to complete this basic scene: the basketball and the background. Let's first start with the background, shall we? In the stills folder under assets, we have stadium segment. Create a new composition out of it, add a rectangle mask to it, and feather it out. We'll take this composition and create a new composition with it, call it stadium background. And actually let's create a new folder, call it background, put these two layers in there, and we'll set the composition's width to about 3500 or so. To it we'll add reptile, CC reptile. We'll set the tiling to unfold, expand to the right, and expand to the left. We don't want this reptile going on. We want the ends to be just in the middle of this feathering that's going on here. So let's decrease the size of the composition to 3150. Okay. And we're back in the main comp. Let's drag our stadium background to the bottom. We actually don't need to see it, so let's shut off the eye for it. We don't really need to see it. Create a new layer, and we'll call it stadium background. We'll set it above our background. Apply to it red giant trapcodes horizon. Okay. And under image map, we'll set the layer to stadium background. What's going on here is that the layer is being stretched. So to work around that, we'll go into our stadium background and set the composition size to 1280 on the height. Okay, so now we get the gaps there, but still the tiles are too large. So let's go into stadium segment and decrease the size to 90 degrees, which will set the gaps a bit larger and the segments a bit smaller. And let's move the layer a bit to the top, so this way it looks real nice. Okay, now one more thing, I would like to add a nice fast blur here, maybe 5, even 10. I just want it to be the background. I don't want people to notice what's going on here. Okay, so for the basketball, let's go into our assets folder again. Under stills, we have the basketball texture and the basketball map. Let's take the basketball map and create a new layer out of it. Drag it to our pre-comps. Now let's create a new folder called basketball. We like to keep things all tidy and clean here. Let's create a new folder called floor. Put parquet floor in there. And let's see, basketball map. Into basketball map, let's drag our basketball texture. We'll add some reptile to it. Let's set it to unfold and set it to fill the entire space here. Actually, let's decrease the size because the texture needs to be smaller, and same goes for the up and down. Okay, then we'll set the transfer mode to color dodge. That way we get a nice texture here. Drag our basketball map and create a new layer with it. Change it to basketball. To it we'll add CC sphere. Let's lower the radius so we can see what's going on here. And rotate it just a bit. Okay, all very nice. Let's go into light. We'll change the light color to be somewhere in the blue section, just a very light blue, since our scene is mostly blue. Later on we'll have to animate the light height and the light direction. For now we'll leave it as is. Let's go into shading, and we'll set the ambient to be 13 or so. We'll set the specularity to be high, nice specular spot. We'll set the roughness to be a bit larger, maybe 0.5, not 0.05, and we'll decrease the metal just a bit. Now let's start with the basketball animation. Let's go back to our main comp, drag in our basketball. Let's set the anchor point to be just at the bottom. Make the basketball a 3D layer, and now go to floor sentinel, hit P to reveal the position, copy the position, and paste it to the basketball. And now the basketball is exactly at the center point of the floor, which is where we want it to be. Furthermore than that, we are going to parent the basketball to the floor sentinel So now it will be that much easier to animate the floor with a basketball in it. Now let's hit P and go to 1 second down the timeline, and this will be the place where the basketball has landed. We'll go to the start of our animation, drag it up and away. I would also like to set a nice curve here. Actually, we want to be at this point just fall closer to 90 degrees. At this point, we will give it 3 more frames to remain in this position. And somewhere around here, it would go back up again, and a few more seconds later, come down to the original position. Now between those two, we have a movement which shouldn't be, so we'll mark both and right click on them, go to keyframe interpretation, and under spatial interpretation, we'll set it from current settings to linear. Furthermore than that, we have a curve here, which we don't want as well, so we'll mark all of these, right click on them, keyframe interpretation, and set the spatial interpretation to linear. Okay, let's switch to front view, and we'll move this point to the middle, so we have a straight line here. This angle we've got here is due to the fact that the layer is orienting towards the camera. We still have an angle here. Let's switch to left view and make sure that at this point we still keep a straight angle to the top. When a ball hits the ground, it usually gets a nice little swash going on, push and stretch. So let's hit Shift S to reveal the scale value as well. 5 frames before the ball hits the ground, we'll create a keyframe, unlink the scale values. We'll go a couple of frames further on, 48 on the X, 52 on the Y. We don't want it to be too cartoony. And at this point they'll switch, 52, 48. And at this point it would switch again, 48, 52. And at this point it will come to its original size, 50 by 50. And we can of course mark all of these, right click on them, keyframe assistant, easy ease. So now let's animate our floor. Let's mark the nulls, the surrounding null and the center null of the floor. Hit P at 1 second on the timeline where the ball hits the ground. We'll create a keyframe. 3 frames later, we'll set the floor center null just about here. Now the ball, as you can see, is above the floor layer at the moment, but we'll take care of that later on. But for now, let's ignore it. And at this point, the floor should go way up there, which would also take the ball to a higher level. So we would like to take it down somewhere around here. Okay, so we got a bounce in and it comes up. And at this point, the floor would bounce. And at this point, it would come to a hold. And maybe we'll give it one more cycle, copy the first frame, and paste it. Mark all of these, right click on them, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Let's switch to our graph view. At this point, we would like it to be a very smooth in and out sort of animation. And finally, a very smooth landing. At this point, it will probably be a good idea to mark this keyframe and control click on it twice to get it as smooth as possible. Let's check it out. Okay, now let's animate the floor surrounding null. When the center null is going down, the surrounding null should go up. Just a small tag, don't overdo it. Copy the first keyframe and then take it down a notch, take it up a bit, and paste the first keyframe just a bit, and finally comes to a hold. Let's have a quick preview of that. Okay, well, you can see it comes to a hold a bit too fast. So let's take these two a bit further more down the line, and these even more. Let's have another quick preview. Okay, it's a bit more like it, but a bit too much Let's drag these here and these just a little bit here. And we can also mark all of these layers because we want to be a very smooth operation. Keyframe assistant is ease. And the last one should be also as smooth as possible. Let's see how that looks. The come into a hold looks a bit fake. The time remap and the particles above the floor will draw the attention from that, as well as the editing, so we don't have to worry too much about that at the moment. Now, you might remember from the preview that the floor had, other than the bouncing action, it had sort of a ripple effect, sort of an aftershock, if you will. And that was created using the Freeform's displacement map. But first I would like to create the parquet floor crumbling away and revealing the grunge floor beneath it. And to do that, we'll first start by creating a grunge floor. Let's go back to project, close the basketball folder and go to floor folder and duplicate the parquet floor base. Rename this one to grunge floor base, right? Okay, so open up grunge floor base and let's take the grunge texture, put it above wood. We actually don't need the wood anymore. And we also don't need the circles and the metal logo. We just want the reflection map. We'll set the scale, we'll just decrease the scale a bit. Okay, something like this should be fine. Let's add curves to the layer. First, let's start by increasing the contrast. Duplicate these curves there, reset it. Let's take out some of the red, take out some of the green, add some blue, take out more of that red. Okay, let's add some tint, decrease it. And let's set the reflection map to multiply, which really enhances the floor's texture. Now, let's start animating the transition between the parquet floor and the grunge floor. So, we'll go to parquet floor base, create a new composition with it, and this will be just parquet floor. Now, we'll add a new layer, make it white, and we'll add to it a circular mask. We'll set the parquet floor base to alpha inverted 8 mm. We want to lower the mask expansion -1000. At 1 second, we'll set a keyframe for the mask expansion and the mask feather. In 3 seconds mark, we'll set the mask expansion back to 0 or even more than that, just until we don't see the floor anymore. Wonderful. And let's increase the feather amount. Just make sure you don't see any of the floor at all. Wonderful. So we have a nice transition here. And this transition is too smooth. So what we would need to do is create a new adjustment layer, Ctrl-Alt-Y. And to this adjustment layer, we'll add roughen edges. I would like to use cut. After experimenting, I found that these settings works best for me. I would like to have a large edge sharpness, extremely large actually. Okay, and a bit of a larger complexity, something of this sort, and I'll set the scale to be smaller. This will be the wipe. Now let's do the same for the grunge floor, only in reverse. Okay, so now let's duplicate the parquet floor and change its name to grunge. Let's go into grunge floor, switch the parquet floor base to grunge floor base. We don't want the roughened edges anymore, and we want to invert the mask to subtract. Okay, so now the top mask would reveal the one beneath it, but we'll still get the feathering beneath the roughened edges. So trust me, that would look cool. Okay, now let's see. I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey. No, that's not really what I would like. I would like to change the parquet floor, which is at the moment the parquet floor base layer or composition. I would like to change it to just parquet floor. Okay, and that would mean that from this point in time it would start decaying and breaking apart until it completely vanishes. Wonderful. Now let's duplicate this one and change the one beneath it to grunge floor. And so we have the second floor being revealed beneath the top floor. Okay, good folks, we have reached the end of part 1. Join me next time in part 2, where we'll finish the floors and basketball animation. We'll create both forms, and finally I'll show you how to easily take over a large corporate using nothing more than 3 bananas and a duct tape.